Hello, and welcome back to my GTNH playthrough. It is August 13th, and we are staring at an empty room. What is this empty room? This was where I had passive titanium, stainless, steel, aluminum, and all that passively processing. The reason we tore it down, we got plenty of those resources, and there's more stuff I'd like to put on passive, but I want to upgrade my setup to do that, and I just figured it would be easier to rip it all down. I even had oxygen and hydrogen right here in two electrolyzers going, but the way the reactors and everything was set up, one side would always shut down due to power loss anyway, so we wipe this all clean. Gonna drop down. The goal is to drop down 4 new reactors, the Lavitron battery, and then a bunch of new EVFs, the electrolyzers, their own vacuum freezer so it's not clogging up the main autocrafting one, and have a much better system. There's a bunch of bats down here because this place is actually dark. If I didn't have that monster repeller, this would be a very different environment right now. But set this guy up. Gonna have EVFs on both sides. Probably throw the electrolyzers back here, and then like the vacuum right here, and then expand as needed. Also, the way I'm envisioning the setup, because the reactors and the control circuit will be the only thing on this floor. It'll be real easy to either expand if I ever need to, which I don't see that needing to for quite a long time, because honestly I'm having to throttle myself down to LUV levels of power, and can easily make ZPM levels of power with my current resources. I think it'll be a couple tiers till we have to worry about that. But the reason that kind of inspired this is initially when we left off yesterday, I was rearranging the clean room. I was gonna make a whole whack of laser engravers at Ivy. I was actually thinking about it, like after I rearranged that place, that I should probably just make Ivy circuit assemblers and Ivy laser engravers. And I was like, wait a minute, why am I doing that? I should be able to, I believe, make the multi-block laser engraver. However, to make the laser, this guy, we need this nitol, or no, not sure. Either way, we need this particular ingot, which is made obviously throwing this dust into the EBF. It's just another one of the titanium alloys, for lack of a better word. Titanium mixed with some nickel. However, if you notice down here, we need IV power. Then I was like, okay, I'll make the... to do that, I need to make the mixer, so I got everything set up to be able to autocraft the mixer. And while I was in the process of this, I was having to wait on some tungsten and tungsten steel. I was like, well, if I'm gonna, because if you remember, ultimately what I'm about to start doing is put a lot of time into setting up my magic stuff, and particularly I imagine setting up the Essentia bees. While it will be worth it for sure in the long run, and basically make it so I never, in theory, should never really have to worry about it again, it is going to take a while. And honestly, if I'm going to take a while doing that, I'd rather that whole time having tungsten and tungsten steel being crafted in the background, along with some other stuff, kind of like peek around and see what else I should throw on passive. So that way, when we come back to technology, we're all good. But that basically required resetting of this. Basically, right before I started recording, the last thing I did was tear down everything. I did craft everything except for a couple circuit pieces for the control circuit, which shouldn't be a big deal. Before I started doing this, not everything's in this chest. These chests are my cheater chests that I basically have a renamed stick, so I can put a bunch of items to that and have the system craft that instead of sitting there trying to remember what individual items to craft. I will say it did take me 4.5 hours for the autocraft of the cheater recipe I had for this Labotronic superconductor, because I had this guy, the 46 capacitor casings, the 9 capacitors, and then probably what also really slowed it down because of all the tungsten was I also threw in that recipe the insane transformers and the high amp EV transformer, so that I don't have to, once I had everything set up, be waiting on that. But I had a busy day at work, so I pretty much, when I got up this morning, I set up that recipe, started that autocraft, and then 4.5 later it was done. See over here I have all my thorium reactor components from that were up here. I'm going to throw one of these guys down underneath my Blood Magic Extreme Entity Crusher that I use for the ritual to keep it going, so that it gets pulled off of the diesel power. What was kind of cool is this, that wasn't the only thing I had crafting. I had a bunch of different stuff crafting. I was actually using all 8 of my auto crafting CPUs, and like I said, one of those recipes in particular took 4.5 hours, and it ended up like the CVD and all the upgrades I made to the diesel system, I didn't have any of the power issues that I was having at the end of EV. So for all intents and purposes, our EV power is taken care of. You can see I hopped up here. This is not even remotely finished for aesthetically, but practically speaking, what I was doing, or my main place I was using as sort of my hub, was the first floor down here, where I had initially set up auto crafting when I really had no idea what I was doing. I was just throwing down single block machines and seeing where that take me. I'm really a learn by doing person, so I needed to, for me, throwing down a couple machines and figuring out how auto crafting worked, it went a long way. So initially I had all my stuff set up here, but as I slowly work on completing the shell of this tower, I figured for the middle of this is where I wanted to throw all my interfaces. I realize eventually I'll have wireless, and this will be kind of a moot point, but I still think it'll just kind of aesthetically look cool. Plus, eventually, when I have access to a quarry and I don't have to do it by hand, I do plan on terraforming this into kind of a nice little park, and kind of doing just some of the more just aesthetic things in this little section, and kind of trying to build a city out, because I want to do a separate building for my ore processing, a separate building for paint and stuff. But those are definitely not anytime soon, because once I finish setting this up, we'll be back to magic. But yeah, so I moved everything up here, which basically involved me running a new A cable up here. I am really happy to be at the point that I can just autocraft 200 of these smart cables to pull from the main controller and do this, instead of having to worry about the channels coming up this, because this controller, or this one cable, should basically allow me to have 2, and then maybe more if I need it, P2P network, P2P ports on every single floor in the tower. So that's really nifty to be at that point. And I did run one of those cables in the other tower a few days ago, but I figured this tower is all my auto crafting, so I use a lot more P2P than this tower currently. So I should pull all this stuff off of this tower just in case I don't see it, but just in case I run out of channels over here. I do plan on, I think for over here, I might do a couple of these floors of some of the processes we'll have to set up, like the plat line and stuff like that, but I think that's where I'm going with this. I'm not entirely sure. The last thing I did today, for the little bit I was playing while I was waiting for that recipe to craft and before I tore everything down over there, was I finally set up all my steel bees, and then I cannot understate how long cleaning up this little section actually did. So I had, for one thing, I didn't have this pre-set up or patterned very well of my capacitor runs to power all these alveries. I had goofy things going on. Instead, now there's one capacitor running 2 rows. Pretty sure it's strong enough to run more, but I'm not going to mess with it. This is stable and don't ever have to stress about it. All it needs is 1 MV combustion, which is basically free, so this works. But all this was full of a bunch of different bees that I never set up, or at least didn't set up more than just out of a simple apiary. So I moved all these guys down here. You can see all my random queens in here that I don't currently have running on passive. And then my goal is I'm going to slowly keep working on the auto crafting while I work on the magic, which I will, I promise, even though I'm dreading it, work on the magic and get that done. But and then as I need resources or know what passive stuff I need to get on, I'll change things up over here. But like part of the impetus of this was I'm going to be setting up a lot more uranium reactors, and the amount of steel that gets used up in that is kind of scary, and I don't want to be put in a spot where we're out of steel again, because that was a pain in the butt. So got all these steel ones, that steel one, 2 more over there. I should be good for steel for a very long time. And then I did breed 1 more bee last night, because as I was, which is actually kind of saving me from crafting a bunch of laser engravers I wouldn't ever need, was the thing that the ingredient I was missing was some arsenic. So I just crafted an arsenic drone, which was pretty simple because I had both its baby components, the zinc and the silver. So set this guy up. And yeah, that's pretty much it for today. I'm trying to think if I did do anything else. It was really small and I can't think of it. It was for tonight, I'm gonna go eat some dinner, and then I'm gonna set up those reactors, the control circuit, and all that stuff that I was describing before. And just real quick, just a friendly reminder of what it should end up looking like. I'm gonna change it up a little, minor things just to make it fit over there, because it is kind of an awkwardly shaped space. But this is basically the gist of it: a control circuit, reactors, the Lavatron, its own dedicated vacuum freezer. Set up a separate one over there, and this one is verbatim from the video guide, and then I said I'm kind of a more hands-on learner, so I get it now. I get all how this works. It's kind of nifty, and I'm just gonna do minor things to make it fit how I prefer. Plus, I'd like to change where in that building, like, my switches are to emergency shut down this whole process and all that stuff. But we'll see. We'll let you know tomorrow if I accidentally nuke my world while trying to do this. But anyways, I'm gonna go eat dinner, so I hope everyone else has a good night, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.